Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome Friday, October the 13th, 2023, TGIF. Hope you are all doing well here on this Friday, a jam-packed show. Lots to get into on game day eve as South Carolina and Florida are set to do battle at Williams-Brice Stadium. And I want to hear from you today here on this Friday Mailbag episode. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. I see Brendan M., John Edward, Peyton Smith, Gavin, Ethan, Travi, Jacob. What's going on? Also, those in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel. The TDC Questions channel, be sure your questions are answered there. Also, those of you who are tuned in live on Twitter and Facebook, welcome. We are back across all available platforms. I guess I just can't make up my mind, guys. I don't know. At one time, at certain points, I'm YouTube exclusive. Then I'm like, let's go on all platforms. Now I'm back to all across all platforms. We were YouTube exclusive. Now we're back everywhere. So here we are, guys. Again, taking your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377. Here on this Friday. We will take your voicemails, by the way, guys. If you call in, leave us a voicemail. We will play that on the lines. And I want to hear from you guys again at 843-790-3377. Also, in our second hour, we get a jam-packed show. Back-to-back guests. We are double dipping on the guests. Jake Crain of Crain and Company. He will join us at 1 o'clock. Marc Ryan at 1:30. And as I mentioned yesterday, guys, Marc Ryan and I have a wager on this game this weekend. So be sure you stay tuned for that at 1:30. You're definitely going to want to hear everything Marc and I have to say in regards to looking ahead to tomorrow's game at Williams-Brice Stadium. I see Ethan K. He says South Carolina 31, Florida 16. Brennan M. says, let's get it. Peyton, TGIF, what's going on, man? Appreciate you. Ethan K., cock talk indeed, man. Cock talk indeed. Nathan from Facebook says, how close do you think the game will be this week? And I've got 24-20, Nathan. My score prediction is officially locked in, 24-20, Nathan. That is my score prediction. So, anyways, guys, those of you that are on Facebook, I see Craig Hanna. What's going on, man? Appreciate you tuning in. Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is where you can check us out. Guys, if you do want to call in, you can leave us a voicemail, and we will play the voicemails on the show right here live. That's going to be the case every single day, Monday through Friday on the Daily Crow. You leave us a voicemail. We'll get to it at the end of the show, including all of your questions as well in our final 30 minutes of the show. In case you missed that, guys, of course, we did remove the Q&A power hours. The show is only noon to 2 now, but the plan is going to be from about 1:30 to 2 o'clock. We will take your questions, your comments, and your voicemails. And do not forget, guys, that tomorrow, after the game, the A1 Air Quality Consultants post-game call-in show will take place immediately following South Carolina's game against Florida. We'll be live right here across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, taking your questions, comments, and, of course, most importantly, I would say, your calls. So, again, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Your love, your support, I truly do appreciate each and every single one of you. Really good stuff. William Dean says Gamecocks 30-21. 30-21. I would take that. Hey, I think all South Carolina fans, I think we would all just take, even a 1-point margin of victory at this point. Truly, truly. It's all about tomorrow. It's just about win. Just find a way to win. By the way, guys, I want to shout out my good friends over at Roback. You can kind of see it here. You can see right there the logo. I'm actually rocking the polo and the hoodie right now. They've got specifically, this is the Cola, the polo I'm rocking. It's got the state of South Carolina, really, really small all over the polo in garnet. This is the Edge Rusher is what this is called on their store. And it's got the garnet and black little strings here. It's got a garnet and black thing on the back as well. If you go to roback.com right now, make a new account, use the promo code SPURSUP at checkout, You're going to get 20% off your entire purchase. And guys, I'll tell you this. I rock a lot of brands. I like Lululemon. I like some other luxury brands, whatever it might be. Like, this is as comfy as anything I've ever worn. Like, this is incredible. The polo, the long sleeve. I haven't tried the pants or the shorts or anything like that yet, but definitely, guys, go check out Rowback, especially all my golfers out there. You need some new golf merchandise, golf polos, what have you. They've got literally anything and everything that you can think of. That store is jam-packed with the highest quality material you can find. So, again, rowback.com. Sign up with a new account. Use promo code SPURS up at checkout. You'll get 20% off your entire purchase. And shout out those guys over at Rowback for sending us the merch. Like I said, guys, it's absolutely incredible. Some of the most comfortable merch I've ever worn, truly. Robbie Davis says, what's up, everyone? It's game day eve. Go Gamecocks. Beamer ball to the moon. Robbie Davis, appreciate you. Like I said, guys, if you do want to be part of the show, you can call 843-790-3377, and you can leave us a voicemail, and we will play that voicemail here on the airwaves. GA, my guy, what's going on? Appreciate you, GA. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, all those in our Discord as well. Be sure to go over to the TDC Questions channel to interact and engage with the show there. Jacob says, Xavier Legette going for 3 touchdowns. Yeah, guys, you have predictions, you have thoughts, you have comments on the game tomorrow. I want to hear them. How do you guys feel? How are you feeling just over 24 hours from kickoff? Again, guys, this Friday show especially is for you all in our mailbag episode. I want to hear from you, your questions, your comments, your thoughts on everything. What's the mood like just over 24 hours from kickoff? What's the confidence level? I mean, South Carolina still sits as a slight favorite in this ball game. 3.5 points is the line in Vegas, or excuse me, 2.5 points, I believe. 2.5 points is the line in Vegas. I'm actually surprised it's that low, but I think South Carolina, we got some wind coming from outside. South Carolina has been so inconsistent this season that, I do understand why that's the case. I've got the window open in the studio right now, and it's apparently not a good idea because it's sitting here blowing the blackout curtains right into the broadcast. So love that. We're off to a hot start today. Cameron Blassengame says Mario Anderson gets 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. Cameron, I tell you this, if Mario Anderson goes for 100 yards, South Carolina is 110% winning this football game. There is no question. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump to the voicemail line.
What's going on, Spurs Up Show? What's up, Chris? It's Peyton here. Just calling in to give a quick prediction and something I'd like to see out of the Gamecocks. So I got the Gamecocks getting it done. I got them 31-27. I think we're going to eke it out in the fourth quarter. And my main thing I want to see, Nick Harbor get the football. Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks, man.
Our good friend Peyton calling in. He's locking in 31-27. Gamecock says he wants to see Nicholas Harbor get the football. Guys, I don't think there's any guarantees that will happen, unfortunately. I mean, it's we'll see. You know what I mean? I just, I thought we'd see Nick Harbor get it a couple of games ago. But I will say this. This is the time of year that I expected that we'd start seeing Nicholas Harbor around mid-season. So if coming out of the bye week, Nick Harbor does not touch the football, I will be somewhat surprised because there's no coach in college football that's more in tune with social media and the calls and the cries of the fan base than Shane Beamer. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to get Nicholas Harbor some action because, fans are clamoring for it or calling for it or what have you. I'm not saying that's the reason, but, I think he understands that people want to see Nick Harbor play and that Nick Harbor is one of your top signees and, people want to see that return on their investment, if you will. I'll just leave it at that. So I'd be surprised if Nick Harbor does not have a touch. How much is he included in the game plan? I have no idea. I don't know. And he may not get a touch. We have no idea. But coming out of the bye week, it would surprise me somewhat if there isn't something for Nicholas Harbor in the game plan. That being said, guys, I mean, I think the game itself sort of dictates Will a guy like Nick Harbor get any action, right? How the game goes, the flow of the game. Is Xavier Legette balling out? Is it somebody else like Amarian Brown or Eddie Lewis or what have you, right? Omega Blake, whoever it might be. So, Nick Harbor may or may not be part of the action. And it's funny, guys. It's one of those things where if South Carolina goes out and wins, and especially wins convincingly, I don't think anybody's going to really care if Nick Harbor touched the football that much. But if you don't win, or God forbid, it's like a really close game and Nick Harbor gets no targets, we'll say, the questions are going to continue to arise. I mean, that's one of the most fascinating things, guys, tomorrow is, and I talked about this yesterday, of course, but like you had the bye week to go back and self-scout and self-evaluate and identify things that you did well, that you didn't. And obviously personnel was one of those things against Tennessee that was under much scrutiny. And I wonder now, are those issues that are lingering or are those issues that we see that get fixed? For example, running a Juju McDowell on a 3rd and short, throwing to a Luke Doty on 3rd and long, 10 yards well short of the sticks. Like, do we see things like that? Like, what is the personnel usage like? What is the personnel usage like? Going to be interesting. Let's see. Chris Miller says, South Carolina and Florida have both been inconsistent this year. Definitely wouldn't mind or want to be betting on this one. I could see either team winning by 10 plus. South Carolina has the edge at home. I mean, I think definitely, man, you look, we actually posted this morning, South Carolina's 2-0 at home, 0-3 away from Willie B. Florida, 4-0 at home, 0-2 away from the Swamp. So, I mean, if you're just going off of who the home team is, I mean, South Carolina, everything is pointing towards the Gamecocks winning this football game. And I know both sides feel like it's a must-win type of game. And, it's for the prospects of this season for each team and getting to 6 wins or 7 wins or what have you. It's a game you need to have. There's no question. I mean, it's a game that South Carolina and Florida both absolutely need to have. So, it's definitely, you'd love this game to be at night. You love this game to be under the lights at Williams-Brice Stadium, but still being at home, I think it will be a raucous environment. I think Gamecock Nation will show up. Of course, it's homecoming as well. It is a sellout crowd, as we all know. So I would expect the home faithful to make Willie B a very tough environment for the Florida Gators, no doubt. Nathan says, how good do you think your offensive line will be this week? I said they only allow, I'm assuming you meant to put allow, they only allow 3 sacks. It's pretty sad, isn't it, when we're calling a game where the offensive line surrenders 3 sacks as, like improved or better, or like thinking that's an okay game, which that's not. That's a terrible game. I'm going to say South Carolina's offensive line is better. I'm going to say they give up 2 sacks in the game. 2 sacks. 2 sacks in the game. Robbie Davis, I have a feeling that we took full advantage of the bye week. I would sure hope so, Robbie. Bruce says, hope we see better play calling, more slants, and using middle of the field. Preston Evans says, how many total turnovers from both sides tomorrow if you had to guess? Do you know that Florida's only forced 2 turnovers all season? So they're as good as their defense has been at times, and like statistically, their defense is really good. They have not really gotten the ball off of people. That's been kind of an interesting thing. Haven't gotten the ball off of people. Total turnovers, I'll go 3 total turnovers. 1 by South Carolina, 2 by Florida. Jeff Gullidge, I said it all summer, and has been true so far. We need to score 30-plus points to win each week. Well, Jeff, I've got this one as a little bit of a lower scoring game. Could be wrong. I've got 24-20 South Carolina. But to your point, this could be another shootout, could be another game in which, South Carolina can't stop anybody. They've got to outscore the opponent to win. It could be another scenario like that. But I'll say this, Jeff, on that note. If South Carolina struggles to stop Graham Mertz and the Florida offense, I think that will be the writing on the wall that there needs to be a change at DC at season's end. I mean, just flat out. I think that'll be all she wrote, truly. That'll be all she wrote for Clayton White as defensive coordinator. I just don't think it's going to fly, man. I don't think it's going to fly that, that South Carolina cannot stop the mighty Florida Gator offense. And I say that obviously sarcastically. Jacob says, Cocktober. It is indeed the beginning of Cocktober. Hopefully that Cocktober magic shows up tomorrow. John Edwards says, State Fair in town. Yeah, all those. Hey, listen, all those battling traffic, God bless you and best of luck, man. God bless you and best of luck. So it's fun when the State Fair's in town. It is. It's fun. It's a good time. Fred Hill says they have to give Anderson the ball in order to give him 100 yards. Harbor needs to be involved in the game. Fred, we'll see. I mean, again, it's interesting, but after a game like Tennessee, in which you had, you lose like that on the road, everything gets picked apart, everything gets critiqued, which it should, and it's fair that it does. But obviously, personnel, play calling, those were all things that people were less than thrilled about in that game against Tennessee. So, we'll see if the Gamecocks make the adjustments. I mean, I think it's very simple. Give the ball to 24. Don't overthink this thing. Don't overcomplicate it. But it is funny how it seems as if sometimes the very simple can be very complex. It's wild how that happens. Travi says, not feeling great about it. Our defense still can't stop them. Again, guys, this is not a high-powered Florida offense. The thing, I will say this, what worries me about this football game is that Florida's strengths, at least some of them, are South Carolina's weaknesses. The Gators can run the football, right? They love the short passing game. That's how they make a living. We've seen South Carolina struggle in that department. And if Florida's able to run the football with Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne, it's going to be a 4-quarter battle, guys. It's going to be a 4-quarter slugfest, and it's going to be a much closer and much more competitive game than I think fans, want this to be. It's interesting. This game all offseason, I think most Gamecock fans label this one as it's going to be a blowout. We're going to get our revenge on Florida. There's no way Florida can beat South Carolina. Like, if you'd have told me over the summer that this was going to be a 2 or 2.5 point spread, I would have thought you were crazy. I mean, really, I really would have thought there's no way. There's just absolutely no way. Like, things have gone south in a hurry. Things have gone south in a hurry if South Carolina is only a 2 or 2.5 point favorite against Florida. And sure enough, that's exactly where this game sits. Again, guys, you can call in, leave us a voicemail at 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your predictions, your analysis on this game and the rest of the SEC action this weekend as well. Cody says, what uniforms are we wanting for tomorrow? Cody, I would probably go big game garnet, whether that's white garnet or black garnet. I would like to see that. I have no idea, Cody. The uniform, listen, the uniforms under Beamer just make no sense anymore. Like the uniforms under Beamer make literally no sense. And that's not like a criticism. It's just, it's the reality of it. Like, I don't ever know what we're going to wear. And what's ironic about that is that when Beamer got to South Carolina, he said, we're not going to focus on unis. The unis aren't going to be a big deal. And as his tenure has progressed, they said in the beginning, we're going to keep everything traditional and normal and not make a big to-do about the unis. And they literally have done that. Like, the uniforms change up, it seems like, every single week. So I have no idea. I have no clue what South Carolina is going to go with for unis. I haven't even heard rumors, nothing. So I would think big game garnet. I mean, you have not pulled that out this year, I don't believe, outside of, did you wear it? You didn't wear it in game one. No, you wore white garnet white, or white garnet white with the throwback helmet for whatever reason. So I think big game garnet, maybe the black helmet. I would not be surprised if they go with that. Guys, we're going to jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we'll keep the convo rolling, taking your questions, your comments, your calls, and more here on this Friday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome back here on this Friday, October the 13th, 2023, our Friday mailbag episode. I want to continue to hear from you, 843-790-3377. You can leave us a voicemail or text that number with your thoughts, or of course, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube. Leave us a question, leave us a comment, leave us your thoughts, everything South Carolina, the SEC, college football, whatever you guys want to discuss. We can talk about it here on this Friday. Also, guys, be sure to pour one out for all the Atlanta Braves fans out there. Unfortunately, the Bravos falling to the Philadelphia Phillies. We don't have to talk about it if you guys aren't ready, but it's a shame. It's a shame that, like, you spend all season watching the Braves or watching your ball club, and then 4 games, it's over. Done. Kaput. Finished. History. Is what it is. Let's see. Nathan says, Missouri is scary good. I really scary about next week. Nathan already looking ahead to the Mizzou game. Chase Floyd, why bring up the Braves? Chase, honestly, I saw you, and it made me think about the Braves, so appreciate it. Appreciate it. You made me think about it, Chase. Ken says 31-20 South Carolina. Yeah, Ken, to your point, I'll say this. I think it's more likely that South Carolina wins this game by double digits than loses this football game. I will be stunned if South Carolina shows up and does not play their best football game of the season coming out of the bye week. I'll be stunned. I really will, because that's all South Carolina has done. And not just under Shane Beamer, but literally 15-2 off the bye week since 2009, right? 2-0 under Shane Beamer in both games, played really well, including that blowout win over Florida back in 2021. So, I mean, when South Carolina's had extra time to prepare, really outside of the Notre Dame game, the bowl game, which, I mean, you had like your entire defense out in that one. But when South Carolina's had extra time to prepare, I mean, they've played really, really well. They've played really well. Ken says, is this game as simple as doing what you did against Mississippi State to stop the run? I don't see Merch being able to have that much success. I think so, Ken. I think you have to sell out on stopping the run. I think you have to. I think you have to sell out on stopping the run. Make Graham Merch beat you. I think you need to make Graham Merch beat you to eat, right, Ken? That was one of my keys of the game. Take away the short passing game. Be aggressive defensively. Play up on Florida and make Graham Mertz beat you over the top, because he hasn't proven he can do that this season. He hasn't proven he can beat you with a vertical passing game. But you cannot let him dink and dunk you to death and swing passes and dump offs, and you just can't let it happen. So I would expect an aggressive defensive game plan from the Gamecocks tomorrow. Bruce says, feels like we need to run more Wildcat. Every time we do it works, and even let Joyner throw a couple of passes. See bowl game a couple of years ago, be more creative. I mean, Bruce, here's the thing, though. Outside of the Tennessee game, like, the offense hasn't been the problem, has it? Has the offense been the problem? I mean, I guess you could look at some of the losses and say it has been. I'll give you credit there. I'm just thinking, for the most part, like, when you've won, the reasons you've won have been offense, right? The biggest problem has been when you've fallen behind and teams could just pin their ears back and rush Spencer Rattler, and he just had no chance, right? So, you know, I think that is more so. I mean, to your point, hey, leave nothing in the cupboard, right? Throw the kitchen sink at them. I mean, truly, if you got to. Do whatever you have to do to put up points. And put up points in a big way. Let's see. Nathan, if we play like we did against Mississippi State, I think it'll be a long game, but we lead most of it, like 28-21 South Carolina. I could see that score. Guys, again, if you want to call in, text us, leave us a voicemail, whatever you like. Would love to hear from you. I know some of you that normally call in, don't be shy. You can leave a voicemail just the same. We'll play it on the airwaves. Chris Taylor, South Carolina will be okay if Juju doesn't touch the ball. Golly. What was the guy after the Tennessee game that said that DeKevon Joyner should be in a a T-shirt on the sidelines or something like that. Like, bro, the comments get brutal. On that note, guys, of course, the A1 Air Quality Consultants post-game call-in show will take place immediately following tomorrow's game against Florida. Going to be a fun one. Going to be a fun one, no doubt. Looking forward to hearing from you guys, and hopefully it is a celebration type of show. Because if it is not, my goodness, I mean, it's going to be ugly. I mean, for whatever fan base, for whatever team loses, that fan base, it's going to be ugly, one way or the other. Let's see. Again, guys, drop your score predictions. Would love to hear what you guys think is going to happen in tomorrow's game. John Edwards says 31-27, South Carolina. Bruce says, also on defense, play up on receivers. Playing off the ball is maddening. Yeah, I'd agree, Bruce, and it can't happen in this football game. Brayson says, have to utilize play action with Mario in the game. Florida expects us to try to establish the run with him, and they also don't want another repeat of a Ray Davis type back running all over them. Well, Brayson, I would say this. The only way the play action is going to work is if you can run the ball even half decently. If you have no threat of a running game, the play action does nothing. The play action only works when there's a threat that you might hand it off, and you might be able to pop off a 5 or 10 yard carry. So you need to establish some sort of a running game. And guys, it's like we've talked about before. You don't have to run for 200 yards, guys. You don't have to be a juggernaut running the football. Like, it's no secret. We all know, like, passing the football with Spencer Rattler, that's the strength of the football team. That's how you're going to win games. You just have to be able to grind out enough yardage to make them respect it. And there's nobody on this roster that can do that better than 24. There's nobody on this roster that can do that more effectively than Mario Anderson, right? Like that's why he needs to be the one in there. Just pop off 3 or 4 carry. That's all you need to do. 3 or 4 carry. That's it. Phil Harris says, Cox by a billion. Phil, it's great to hear from you and see you, my friend. Appreciate you tuning in. Kens, over under Rattler, 16 yards rushing. I can tell, Kens, you checked out PrizePicks today because that is his over-under total on PrizePicks. I will go – see, what's tough about this, Kens, is how many times does he get sacked versus how many times does he escape the pocket and run for a gain. I'll go over 16. If I have to pick, I'll go over 16. That's a no play for me, though, Kens, on PrizePicks. No play for me. Speaking of PrizePicks, we can run through the picks really quick. I've got my picks here. I've got Graham Mertz under 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think if Florida has success, it's not through the air. Carson Beck over 290.5 passing yards. Jalen Milroe over 233.5 passing yards. Joe Milton under 250.5 passing yards. Jaden Daniels under 83.5 rushing yards. Aniyah Smith over 55.5 receiving yards. And Montrell Johnson for Florida over 58.5 rushing yards. Those are my PrizePicks plays for the weekend. Go check them out, guys, for sure. Tons of plays on PrizePicks and tons of value to be had. And we appreciate our friends over at PrizePicks. Again, guys, phone lines are open. You can leave us a voicemail at 843-790-3377 if you like, or just leave us a comment, and we will air it here. We'll get it on the airwaves. Lynn Turner says, every player people are complaining about have had some success in the right condition. We have to get Juju with the ball in space to take advantage of his speed. Yeah, Lynn, listen, I don't think anybody's saying that Juju McDowell should never touch the football field again, but he shouldn't be the ball carrier on 3rd and 1. He shouldn't be the go-to back on a 4th and short, 3rd and short. It's not his game, Lynn. That's not his game. That's not his game. And I don't think the excuse of, well, you know, we're running tempo and he's in there. Like, that's not a good enough excuse. Lee Gilmer says at some point we're going to have to put together a whole game. In each loss, they only really played 1.5 of top-notch football. That's a good point, Lee. Does South Carolina finally put together a complete game this weekend. Jeff Gullidge says 35-24, South Carolina. Okay. And I think, Jeff, that would be a successful outing. I mean, truly, because I think Florida's got a good defense. Here's the thing. Florida's looked porous defensively once this season. And it came against Kentucky, who was able to run the football. And I just don't know if South Carolina, I don't think they can do that. They don't have a Ray Davis. I don't know that they even have the offensive line that Kentucky has. I don't think South Carolina is capable of beating Florida that way. So, what do they do? What do they resort to if they can't do that? And can they still score points and be effective? I think there's going to be opportunities against this Florida defense. This Florida-South Carolina game, guys, it's a perfect example of, and it's one of the reasons why college football is so great because, if you zoom out here, if you zoom out and look at this game from the SEC-wide perspective, certainly the national perspective, but even just like the SEC perspective as a whole, this game, there's not a lot riding on this game from the sense of, like, neither one of these teams is even going to remotely compete for the SEC East or probably even impact the race in any way or what have you. I mean, guys, realistically, this game between South Carolina and Florida is probably for fourth or fifth in the SEC East. I mean, realistically, that's what this game's probably for. But you can't tell Gamecocks or Gators that because this game is massive to those two respective fan bases. And it's such a beautiful thing. Like it's you know what I mean? Like, again, from the SEC wide perspective, there are so many games across the conference that are so much bigger than this one this weekend. But for Gamecocks and Gators, I mean, this game, you got people talking about, is the coach going to be on the hot seat if they lose this game, what have you? And it's like, to think there's that much emphasis on this one. But there is. I mean, there really is, though. There's a ton of emphasis on this game. Tons of emphasis. But to be fair, I mean, again, we're going to be sitting here a week from today saying the same thing. Like, you can't lose 5 in a row to Missouri. Like, we're going to be talking about how much emphasis is on the Mizzou game. Like, they're all important. They're all big. They're all big for their own respective reasons. I just think for South Carolina, I just don't think you can afford to fall to 2-4. I just do not think you can. You fall to 2-4, and all of a sudden, things just go completely sideways. Peyton Smith says, start the campaign for a blackout game. Peyton, I don't think people want me to do that. I do not think people want me to do that. Here's what would happen, Peyton. I'd start the campaign, and then I would get called the jinx for starting the campaign. So I'm not doing it. I'm not starting a campaign for a blackout. So, sorry. Let's see. Bruce. Got to have better play calls. Rattler dropping back and waiting 30 seconds for receivers to get open with our bad offensive line isn't working. I'll say this, Bruce, to be fair to Dowell Loggins, the task of game planning and scheming around that offensive line is not one that is very easy. So, it's not one that's very easy. Lynn Turner, why did Dekebrion Joyner not take a single snap when we had the ball inside the 5 last week? He is our best threat on those short yardage plays this year. Lynn, I'm trying to recall. So, when we were inside the 5, I don't remember him not being in there. Did we get stuffed? Did we get stopped? I don't recall that. I do recall being inside the 5 on our own 5-yard line and Dekebrion Joyner being in there. I don't recall being at the goal line and him not getting it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have no idea. I don't recall that, though. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. Also, really quickly, guys, as you all know, of course, we air our daily live show on YouTube, but admittedly, we have not in the past made tons of YouTube-specific content. That's going to be changing here in the very near future. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up. You're going to be seeing a lot more YouTube content from us. That's not just like the 2-hour live show. It's going to be much more consumable, digestible, much more fun, and easier to tune into. So for those of you who enjoy YouTube, a lot of what we do on the podcast, it'll be distributed to YouTube as well in short form. So excited to say that. Just keep an eye on that. You guys will see that in the near future. Greg Bedinger says in the Big Cock Club Discord, do you think we'll see any improvement with our offensive line and defense? If not, we will lose tomorrow. Well, Greg, I've got South Carolina winning the football game, so I would say yes. I think you're going to see this. I think you're going to see this football team as a whole play much better. I just, again, as I said before, guys, I will be really, really surprised if coming off the bye week, having 2 weeks to get ready, I will be really surprised if South Carolina does not come out and play well. I really will. Guys, let's jump to the phone lines. We have a voicemail. Let's get to it.
Been a dang Carolina Gamecock fan most of my life. I used to have a mullet because Steve Tannehill had a mullet. I'll tell you right now, I've been riding the wave straight down to the sand and having to brush the sand off and get back up again. I've seen the Gamecocks lose every single game in one season. And I'm going to be honest with you, I saw them with Ohio State. I've seen Ryan Brewer come through like a madman against them. And I'm going to tell you right now, Shane Beamer is my man. And Shane Beamer's got balls. And as far as Juju McDowell goes, nobody had a problem on him out there on 4th and a few against Clemson last year when he about took one to the house. I enjoy the show, but he boys better leave my boy Juju alone. I was born down there around Rooster Boot, Georgia. I'll be honest with you. Them Georgia boys, I see you want in there on 4th and a few. Uh-huh. You take care there, Christopher. I'll be calling you back soon.
Great call. I love that. Love that. I would just say this about the Juju McDowell usage on 4th down, because you are right. You're right, by the way. Juju was in there on 4th down against Clemson last year, but they utilized him in a pass. You see what I'm saying? So, to Lynn Turner's point, to everybody's point, it's not that anybody dislikes Juju. I think Juju is a valuable part of this offense. I think Juju can be a dynamic playmaker, but you have to use him correctly. And handing the ball off to him up the middle, it's not utilizing him correctly. It's not. That's just like, it goes without saying. Juju McDowell is like 5'7", 140 pounds. Like, the guy is small. That's okay. He's a speedster. He's not meant for between the tackles, and that's okay. Just use him the right way. That's all it comes down to. That's all it comes down to. Let's see. Bruce says, I mean, more creativity with the play calls, more crossing routes, more wildcat, slants, draws, verses, etc. Yeah, we'll see if Dabble Loggins does that. Let's see. Travi, first and foremost, set the tone on how to stop Johnson and ETN. Yeah, you got to. I do think getting off to a quick start is important. And, I'll say this. I feel like that's probably one of the most overused cliches out there, because I don't think anybody's ever gone into a football game and said, I think it'd help us. It'd be really beneficial if we got off to a slow start this game. Just a slower start will be great. So getting off to a fast start, we could say that every single week. But I will say the advantage of doing so for South Carolina will be, this is a Florida team, guys. You got to think on the road. They're mentally fragile. They're mentally soft. They know how porous they've been on the road. They know they've been terrible. And if you're able to jump all over Florida and get up 7-0, 10-0, 14-0, I think they look around and go, okay, here we go again. So if you can get them in that spot, I think you'll be in a really, really good position to pull away, secure the dub, and, have one hell of a day at Willie B. Aaron Hodges says, you've been everywhere in Gatorland. Yeah, we've had a good time. Talked with our friends Stadium and Gale earlier this week. Talked with inallkindsofweather.com a couple of days ago. And, of course, that video is now on our YouTube as well. We've had a good time getting the Gator perspective. And I'll tell you this, guys, I don't know whether this makes me more confident, less confident, or just the same. But those Those Florida guys are picking South Carolina. They are not confident at all coming in this one. And hopefully, their hesitations are proven right. Put it that way. Guys, we're going to jump into another quick break. On the other side, we'll continue the conversation, taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails, and then we'll get into our conversation with Jake Crain of Crain & Company at 1 o'clock. A jam-packed show here on this Friday, guys. All that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday. You know what I just realized, by the way? It's Friday the 13th. So I don't know if anybody out there believes in the whole Friday the 13th stuff, what have you, but I don't even know what it means to believe in it or not, but if you do, so be it, what have you. Spooky Friday, if you will. Maybe South Carolina actually does break out the all-black jerseys because of that. Either way, I know there's a lot of you right now that are tuned in on X. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We do have our good friend Jake Crain of Crain and Company upcoming at 1 o'clock. Then at 1:30, we've got Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate, which, of course, he is a known Florida Gator. And Marc Ryan and I actually have a friendly wager on this game tomorrow that you're going to want to hear. So stick around for that. But in the meantime, let's get back to your questions, your comments, your voicemails. Also, our friend Dale from East Tennessee called in and left us a voicemail over the break. Let's see what Dale is up to these days.
Hey, Chris, it's Dale from East Tennessee. You know, the fella you told wants somebody in your inner circle that you wanted to be for Halloween? Yeah, I know. Somebody hit me up in the DMs. I don't know if I should be complimented by that or offended, but I respect it. I got a few things for you, man. I think the prediction for the Gamecocks, they're going to bounce back, man. Old Cocky's going to come out swinging. 35 Florida Iguanas 12 on 4 field goals. 35-12 on that. And hey, man, what do you think about Tennessee and Texas A&W? I don't know too much about Texas A&W, but I know their root beer sucks. So if you can just give me an update on that, who you think is going to win? All right, buddy, BDD out.
BDD out. Dale from East Tennessee. Always appreciate hearing from Dale, and Dale is not going to like my prediction, my pick for that one. I think the Aggies go on Rocky Top and get the W. I do. I think it's the defensive front of Texas A&M that makes the difference. I think Joe Milton under the rest. I think Texas A&M is actually going to do what South Carolina should have done, which is commit to stopping the run, pressure Joe Milton, and make him beat them. And I don't think Joe Milton's going to be able to do it. I think Texas A&M does just enough. Again, I think this is a break for Texas A&M. The game's at 3:30, and it's not at night at Neyland. It will be a raucous crowd, but I got Texas A&M in that ball game. And then, what do you say, 35-12, South Carolina over Florida, which I would take that in a heartbeat for sure. Guys, let's get back into your comments. Ethan K says, need 2 halves of football. No more 0 points and a half or having to come from behind with Rattler having unnecessary pressure. I mean, Ethan, to your point, that's why a lot of these sacks have happened, right? South Carolina has fallen behind, and they've gotten in these very obvious passing situations. And, I mean, South Carolina's offensive line struggles to protect when it's a 50-50 shot whether they're going to run or throw. If it's 100% or 90-10 or whatever, like if it's likely that South Carolina's going to throw and a defense can just pin their ears back, this offensive line has no chance. I mean, flat out, point blank, this offensive line just does not stand a chance. Braddock 843, Braves lost last night. Hurts the long break, I do believe, hurts the teams that win in the regular season. You know, Braddock, and I saw, I think it was Josh Pate that tweeted this. I saw some others too, but like, and it might come off as sour grape. So if it does, apologies in advance. But it really does. Like, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why, like, I don't watch a lot of regular season baseball, guys, like hardly at all. I will probably, if I had to put the number at like over, under 10, I probably watch under 10 Braves games per year. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Like, there's other stuff going on, and there's just so many games. And so it feels like the games are meaningless. And then it's like when you get to the playoffs and your season's over in 4, like it makes it feel like, I mean, what was the point in winning the pennant? What was the point in winning the division? The Braves would be better off to win the wild card. They'd be better off to not have – look at all the teams that got the extra rest. Like, baseball's such a game of routine. It's such a game of nuances and getting in a groove, getting in a rhythm. And, like, all you do when you win your division and you get that long break and that long bye is throw yourself out of the rhythm you were in. You throw yourself for a loop. It's like you're starting over. Like, a week-long break feels like 6 months in Major League Baseball because you play every day. So I think they've got to change that, man. Again, you want to call it sour grapes, so be it. I don't care. I think they've got to change that, though. I think they've got to make a change to the playoff structure to where you don't get 7 days or whatever it is, 6 days, however long. You don't get that much time off. Or everyone gets the same amount of time off. It just makes no sense to have the Phillies playing in a series and playing while the Braves are sitting on their butts because a bye week doesn't work the same way in baseball as it does in football. Like, it doesn't help. A bye week does not help you in baseball. It hurts you. Getting out of rhythm, it hurts you in baseball. So, again, many of you out there, I know our guy Peyton, AAG, he's going to label me sour grapes. So, whatever. He's a Mets fan. What does it really matter what he has to say? Let's see. We're going to jump to – we got a voicemail really quickly, then we'll jump to Jake Crain in a second. We do have a voicemail on the voicemail line. Let's get into it. Oh, hold on. Can we get it to play? Bruce.
This is Bruce from Darlington, a.k.a. Bruce in the chat.
Bruce.
I just want to ask a couple questions. One, why in the heck the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome? Have you noticed that every time we're on a good drive, after we've had 3 or 4 positive plays in a row, we just run up the middle out of nowhere and get stopped, and then we do it again. Instead of it setting up something in the pass game, all it sets up is a punt.
Bruce commented and said, he said to skip the voicemail because his dog started barking at Bruce. I got to be honest, that gave me more incentive to play the voicemail. You should. Hey, listen, next time, just talk through it, man, or get the dog on the line. We'll hear what he has to say. Apparently, he didn't like your thoughts about the play calling. I don't know. Let's see. Just going back to your questions really quickly. Again, Jake going to join us in 2 minutes. Braddock843, what's going on? Appreciate you. Thomas Walker says Xavier Legette with at least 100 yards and a touchdown. Spencer with 3 or fewer sacks and 2 runs of at least 10 yards. 2 runs. That's all we're asking for is 2 runs of 10 or more yards. We have very low expectations. 1 takeaway, no missed field goals, running game with a combined 150. Okay. Hey, I'll take that in a heartbeat. Yeah. If running game goes for 150, South Carolina is going to win this football game. Because the difference is Florida doesn't have Tennessee's offense. They're not going to be able, I think, to move the football that way. I say that tongue-in-cheek, though, with the sense that Florida can run the football, and if South Carolina can't stop the run, it could be a very, very, very long day. Long day for sure. Aaron Hodges said neutral site, he's picking Florida, but that they've been awful on the road for 3 years now. Yeah, they have been. They've been terrible. They've been terrible on the road. And that's the thing I picked up on, Aaron. All the Florida guys I talked to, they all just look at this game and say, we've looked unprepared. We've looked out of sorts. You know, they refer to the Utah game where they had 2 guys wearing the same number jersey. Like, their expectations on the road are 0. Completely 0. So hopefully South Carolina is able to take advantage of that. You'd love if this game was at night. But 3:30, it should still be rocking. It should still be a crazy environment. I expect the Gamecocks, Gamecock Nation to show up and show out and make life a living hell for Florida tomorrow afternoon. Okay, guys, that being said, and let me also remind you, too, if you have questions for any of our guests, especially a guy like Jake Crain or Marc Ryan who's going to follow him, they are very active in the chat. So go ahead, drop your comments in here, guys. And many of you have requested, Chris, can we submit questions? You are more than free to leave your comments in the chat, and we may be able to get to those throughout the conversation. With that being said, the guys, he joins us every single Friday, and really excited to chat with him once again, Jake Crain of Crain and Company. Jake, first thing, please tell me you did not have West Virginia -3 last night.
Oh, no, I had the over. Absolutely
Okay.
smashed the over at 49. I tell you what, I felt good about the over. I had it at 49.5. Into the first quarter, it was 10-7. You know, it was slow at first, and Houston ran that kickback. You always love special teams touchdowns with overs. And then I could tell after the first 3 or 4 drives in the second half that it was going to hit. But I'm telling you, last night, I had the SMU TTP over 30.5. Wild that it hit. Wild that it hit. One of those, which means they're going to take one away from me this weekend. I'm just getting ready for it.
You like anything tonight on the board? Talking a little gambling. Yeah, I know we got Colorado Stanford late.
Look, I like the under in Fresno State, Utah State. You know, Fresno State's backup quarterback's going to have to play. They're going to play in elevation for the second straight week on a short week. They went to Wyoming and Laramie. Now they're going out to Logan, Utah. I don't think you'd be crazy to sprinkle some on Utah State plus 4.5. But Fresno State doesn't turn the ball over. Utah State does turn the ball over. I think it's going to be kind of a slower game. I mean, it's hard for me not to put everything on Colorado to cover. I mean, I've watched Stanford play. I mean, this isn't a reading test or like a law dissertation or a thesis on when sunlight meets oxygen or whatever the hell they talk about over there. So I don't know how you don't take Colorado to cover, but I'm dropping my Crain-Pythagorean theorem parlay here in a little bit. So just where the scientists have gotten together, had to fire somebody last week, but other than that, it's all good.
Yeah, I think our friends at PrizePicks, I think the over-under on Shedeur Sanders passing yards tonight is like 349.5. So they're expecting him to go off, which, I mean, again, we've all watched Stanford play football this year, so it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Jake, let's get right into it. This weekend slate of games, obviously, South Carolina, Florida. I actually watched you guys' video on YouTube this morning breaking down this game, and I saw your tweet. You locked in Gamecocks minus 2.5. You know, I thought the interesting thing when you guys were talking to our good friend Chris Marler, you know, this is a game that really, I think the beauty of college football is reflected because if you zoom out the SEC scope or the national scope, certainly this isn't a game that's going to determine any champions or anything like that. But for these two respective fan bases, I mean, this is a massive game. And, you know, fairly or unfairly, the loser in this one, that fan base is going to be a complete mess. And, Jake, I think that's what's so interesting is, like, from what I can tell this week, for whatever reasons, their own reasons, right? Both fan bases are expecting the worst, and it's like somebody has to win the game, right? So what your thoughts on the way, like the hype and the hoopla surrounding the game, the coaches, you know, some people are saying like whoever loses this one's on the hot seat. I think that's a little aggressive, but I will say in the scope of the 2023 season for each of these teams, you know, it's a big game. It's a big game for each respective program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you got to look what time of the year it comes. You know, it's like halfway through the year. So if you're wanting to build momentum to this finish, right, if you want to maybe turn it around a little bit from what you know, if you're feeling down about your season, this is one that you need to win. When you look at it from both standpoints, neither one of these coaches is getting fired if they lose this game. I don't think either one of them are getting fired regardless of what happens at the end of the year. But I will say that when I look at South Carolina, and I look at kind of, you know, Shane coming out in this press conference and talking about, you know, we overachieved early and everybody expects us to win 9 or 10 games this year. It's not really how it works. I think if you lose this one, if South Carolina loses this one, which I don't think they will, you're going to hear that chirping keep happening, right? It's going to be tough in the back end. And I think it makes next year a very hot year for Shane Beamer to show big progress. I mean, by year 4, you know, year 4 and year 5, you need to show progress, right? You need to have that one big year. But I don't think he's in trouble by any means. And I think they're going to win this game. Now, when it comes to Billy Napier, I don't think he's in trouble either. I don't think Scott Strickland's going to fire him if he loses this game. And Florida is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde on the road and at home. But if you look at both schedules, this is one where, you know, you're always technically outside of a very few amount of coaches at this level, you're always on the hot seat. You're always a bad 2 to 3 game stretch away from people putting you on the hot seat. But I legitimately think you lose this one, then that next year, even for Billy, who they've got an absolute, I mean, their schedule next year is like getting jumped by a group of ninjas. Now we're talking legitimate, you better show progress.
And I would agree with you, Jake, on the Billy Napier thing especially. They're not going to pay him $31 million after year 2 to get him out of there. Again, like you mentioned, you've locked in Gamecocks minus 2.5. What do you like about South Carolina in this one? Is there a certain matchup or certain facet of the game you think they have the advantage? Obviously, we all know And the low-hanging fruit is Florida. They've been terrible on the road. South Carolina turns into a different beast at home for whatever reason. 3:30 kickoff at Williams-Brice Stadium. I like the under 51 in this game. I think this is a lower scoring game. But how do you see this game going? What's the flow of the game like? And why you think South Carolina comes out on top?
Yeah, this is the game I picked South Carolina to win before the season with the prediction that I have, John Edward. Like, I love how you bring that up. Like, it's not going exactly that way right now, even with a win this weekend. Here's what I think. I think one team has Spencer Rattler and the other one doesn't. Like, obviously, when you look at Florida and South Carolina, yeah, Florida's terrible on the road. It's amazing how well they can run the ball at home. And now when they go on the road, whether it's to Utah, whether it's to Kentucky, they're not able to run the ball. And you're going to be out your starting center. And listen, I know South Carolina's front seven on defense isn't very good. Let's be honest, right? You want to know who's really on the hot seat? I think Coach White's on the hot seat. That's who I think's on the hot seat. But I think they find a way to limit Florida. And the difference is, and South Carolina's not great up front of the offensive line either. I don't think South Carolina's going to have a ton of success running the ball. But one team has Spencer Rattler, and he's playing at home. The other team does not have Spencer Rattler, and they're playing on the road. Now, does that mean that Graham won't make a few throws? I think he'll make a couple throws. I think Pearsall's a dog. They have a couple pieces, but I don't think they'll run the ball well enough to be able to open up the play action game and the passing game down the field. And I think you're going to see Spencer, because Florida's not bad in the front seven on defense. I don't trust South Carolina to be able to run the ball very well. I think South Carolina does a good job of complementing the run game with that quick passing game, try and substitute it like they did early against Georgia. But this is a game, two things are going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. You ready for it? All right, just you ready?
Let's go.
You ready? You ready? This is a game where South Carolina makes that huge special teams play that separates them, I think. John Ever, I love you, by the way, bro. I think whether it's a punt return, whether it's a kickoff return, whether it's a block punt, whether it's a fake punt, this is the game where a huge special teams play happens. And I think Spencer Rattler, this game, just like he has all year, the two most important players of their team both have Carolina in the last of their team's name. It's Drake May and it's Spencer Rattler. I think Spencer Rattler carries this team and throws for over 275 yards, 300 yards, has at least two touchdowns passing and a rushing touchdown. That's what's going to happen in this game.
I think that would be the recipe for victory. And it's Jake, it's kind of ironic you say that, because I was actually asked earlier this week about like a key to the game for South Carolina, what have. And I mean, the low hanging fruit, the obvious, block somebody and tackle somebody, line of scrimmage play, whatever, win up front. But I do agree with you that even when South Carolina has done those things, when they've been their best under Shane Beamer, they've made big plays, maybe even scoring plays in unconventional facets. And to your point, you've talked about, that's what Beamer ball is. It's using the entire team to beat you, not just one or even just two facets of the game. And I think if South Carolina is going to win this game tomorrow, they're probably going to need that. They're going to need that big play. They're going to need at least for momentum, even if nothing else, even if it's not a scoring play, to flip the field, to flip the game on its head. They're going to need that big play to show itself.
Yeah.
Switching gears, Jake, just a little bit, because you mentioned Shane Beamer, his comments at his Tuesday presser, and he also went in depth on the comments that Marc Stoops made. And, of course, Gamecock football, Gamecock athletics, the social media accounts, they saw the opportunity, of course, to run with that, promote their NIL collectives. And I want to get your take on Marc Stoops specifically and what he had to say about the Georgia program, about NIL, and then, of course, Shane Beamer using that platform to push it. I mean, it's a reality in college football and college athletics, but two very different approaches, I think, about going the way those two guys went about it, talking about NIL and the need for it at their respective schools.
Yeah, well, first off, I think it may be a great shirt idea that just popped in my head. I'm an entrepreneur. This is what I do. It's Beamer Ball. And on the back it says, is Teamer Ball. There you go. So, look, what Marc Stoops said, you know what's funny? Like, in the NIL era, can you imagine if a head coach said this about another coach pre-NIL era? It's like, well, Georgia's buying all their players. Like, we all know. It's amazing what the NIL era has opened up. Now you can just blatantly say they're buying players when we all know everybody was buying players. Look, Marc Stoops, players don't go to Georgia just for the NIL, right? We all know that money talks at the end of the day. I'm not disputing that, but money talks in a different way over there. Georgia is a minor league team for the NFL. And in specificity, the Philadelphia Eagles. Whatever genius Jonah Hill savant Goodwill Hunting person over there at the Eagles that was like, why don't we just build an NFL team out of Georgia and Bama, is literally can probably solve a Rubik's Cube in under 15 seconds. But you go to Georgia because that pipeline in the NFL, that's way more money. That's way more money than you're getting in the NIL over time. So that's part of it. But I think Mark Stoops at a place like Kentucky is right. He just said it to the wrong people. Like, I know for a fact that Mark Stoops can talk to any donor at Kentucky at any point in time through a back channel or through his phone. That is something you say to them in person or on the phone. You don't say it to the fans. You gain nothing from that. Was he wrong? No. Georgia has a better NIL situation than Kentucky in football. If anything, if I was Mark Stoops, I'd have said, you know what? Maybe all this money that y'all are giving to basketball, who does less with more than anybody, maybe you could give some to the football team. Hell, he owes Calipari one. Calipari has trashed him, a year ago. So I would rather you said that, because here's the two problems. One, when you say it like that to the media and to the fans, you make the players in the locker room feel like they're not good enough. Mm-hmm. How am I supposed to go out here and run into another human being full speed if you don't think as all this stuff? I know Mark Stoops after practice sitting like, all right, everybody gather around. Now listen, you guys are not as good as Georgia's players. Okay, Ricky, especially you. I'm surprised you're even here. Like, no, that's not how that works. Football is a confidence game. It is a game that's built on borderline arrogance, narcissism. It's a gladiator sport. So now you've said that they're not as good as Georgia's players. And the second thing, and to me, this is the lesser of the two evils when it comes down to it, is it just makes you sound broke. Like it just makes you sound broke. Like nobody wants. Like, why am I going to the gas station and Mark Stoops is hanging out asking me for a couple dollars? Like, that doesn't show instill a sense of, hey man, these guys believe they're for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like an Oliver Twist moment. So I don't like the way it came off. I think he's right, but I don't think he said it to the right people. Always ask yourself this. I was told one of the smartest coaches I ever worked for always said this. He's like, when you're talking to the media, are you going to say something? Always ask yourself this. Is this helping the team? Is what I am saying helping the team? I don't think anything that Mark Stoops said helped the team. And that's right thing, wrong group.
Jake, continuing with the Week 7 slate, LSU at Death Valley will host the Auburn Tigers. This is one of the most fun rivalries in the SEC. And I feel like, Jake, you have a great rivalry when you have multiple games that have their own nickname. I think that's how you know things get a bit sideways in the series. I like Auburn plus 11, man. I know Blaine kind of got put through the ringer for I don't know. Is he picking Auburn to win? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, man.
So what chance do you give Auburn to pull this upset? Because it's deficiency on deficiency with that Auburn offense and that LSU defense.
Yeah, look, when it comes down to Auburn passing game and LSU's passing defense, it's an old-fashioned cripple fight.
It's a mid-off.
Yeah, it's a cripple fight. It's like what I was saying on the radio this morning. It's like two blind guys having a sword fight. Like, it's going to be ugly regardless, and it's probably somewhat dangerous. Here's my thing with Auburn. Here's what I don't trust. Okay, I watched Peyton Thorne go on the road at Cal and look shell-shocked at Cal, okay, which isn't exactly, they don't exactly feel like Owen Wilson in behind enemy lines over there. So then you go out to Kyle Field in the 12th man, and he looked shook. I mean, I couldn't even get to the check down. It was that bad. Any sort of pressure, and he just absolutely fell apart. And that was at 11. Okay, you're going to Death Valley at night. It's like I was telling Rufino the other day. It's basically Mordor. Like, you walk in and there's just like orcs being born in the swamp in the mud, just walking out. You're getting flicked off by kids that 3 hours ago were legitimately playing with Legos for fun. Like, it's just, I don't trust you down there. But there's some other things I don't trust. I don't trust Auburn's wide receiver group. I think Auburn's going to be able to run the ball. But the biggest question is, how much motion is Hugh Freeze? How much are they going to do on 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, and 3rd and 5s to be able to throw the ball in the quick and intermediate passing game? If they can do that, they'll have a chance. But here's where you get the dagger in you. right? Here's where the garlic meets the vampire. Auburn has no pass rush. I think LSU right now is the best offense in the country. I'll say it. I think they got a better offensive line than USC, right? I think Caleb Williams is better than Jaden Daniels, but I don't think USC's offensive line is as good as LSU's. If you can't generate a pass rush to get pressure, you have to bring pressure. And when you bring pressure, all right, outside of fire zones, right, outside of some umbrella coverage with bringing an intermediate defender, which Florida State tried to do, right? It didn't work a ton, but they tried it. You're going to be skinny in the back end. And I don't see a way that Auburn can score enough points to be able to win the game. But the worst fear is you do not want to get into track meet with LSU. Let's say it all works out. Let's say the passing game's working, the run game's working, and it's just back and forth. Boom, boom, boom. LSU knows they're a one-trick pony, and it's a hell of a trick. They know their season hangs on whether the offense can go out and score 40 in big games. So when that happens, it's just like playing a team that shoots a lot of jump shots, makes a lot of jump shots, right? What do you want to do? You want to take the air out of the ball. You want to throw them off rhythm. Auburn has got to be able to limit LSU's possessions, and LSU's going to have to make a couple mistakes because just like I said with the Missouri game, you do not want to play LSU in a track meet because they're not going to stop scoring. They lead the categories in the SEC by a ton. It's not even close. So I don't know, man. I don't see it. I mean, there's been crazy stuff in this game, right? Earthquakes, fires. Like apparently they found Bigfoot the other day. There's a solar eclipse that's about to happen. But I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. Auburn's going to need to catch some breaks.
Do you believe that was actually Bigfoot? Because I saw your tweet.
Look, man, I was trying to see where Cone won't tell me where he was at that time of day.
LSU, by the way, you mentioned them. How surprising is it how bad they are defensively? I know coaches get way too much credit, way too much blame, but something doesn't seem right, man.
Watching LSU have a bad defense, like watching your mom, like catching her making out with the UPS driver. Like it's just
who was it that replied? I think it was Pakel that replied to you and said it's like Army's in 5 wide and
LSU's it's like Iowa lining up in empty and just throwing it all over and it working. Well, hold on, it's like Iowa getting into the
universe
end zone.
are we
That's
in? What universe are we in?
Yeah, it's the multiverse. No, it's weird because they have, and I've said this multiple times. I think the problem that LSU has on defense is more fixable than like let's say the one South Carolina has on the offensive line. I just don't think South Carolina has good enough players right now to be able to truly fix it 100%. Like I watch LSU run around on some plays and I'm like, how? Like I'll watch them make one play. I'll watch Mason Smith, just make an incredible play at that size. I'm like him and Wingo. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And then they'll just, I don't know. It's almost like it's either paralysis by analysis or they're just really, really, really bad in the secondary. But then I look at their players run around and I'm like, even if we came out here and said, listen, we're running man free. That's it. Just go. Be good. It's easy. It's cat coverage. You have that cat. You have that cat. You have that cat. It's weird to see. Because I think at LSU, I think of swagger, man. I think of that defense running around just melting people. It's weird to see. It's like watching a fat girl do the rings in the Olympics and it work. It's just, you're not used to seeing it.
Jake, we moved to Lexington. We were speaking on Mark Stoops earlier. They got a big one, 7:30 kickoff, Kentucky and Mizzou. You could argue this game is maybe for who's going to be second in the SEC East. Both teams trying to bounce back from losses. They were built a little differently, though. Missouri with a tough, hard-fought game against LSU. Kentucky got blasted by Georgia. Does Devin Leary do enough to give? It's hard to pick Kentucky until Devin Leary shows up. Ray Davis is fantastic.
Yep.
Bavarian Brown and Dane Key are really good, but I don't know what the hell we're going to get from Devin Leary. And then, Brady Cook and Luther Burden and Nathaniel Pete and Cody Schrader and those guys on the Mizzou offense have got it rolling. How do you see this game? Because, again, this is just another one of those SEC coin flip type of games. And I guess if you're going to go home field, you'd go Kentucky. But I've got Mizzou in this game. Which way are you leaning in this one?
God, I can't wait not to bet this game. Look, I mean, we had to pick this one on the show. I think you got two upset teams, but they're upset in different ways, right? Like, it seems like Missouri's just disappointed. Like they're just let down. Like, man, we had an opportunity. We were up. Could have really launched a 6-0 into the national conversation. Drinks got it going. Not that they don't, or that it's it's all terrible now. But that could have been a big moment, and you had LSU. Then Kentucky's just embarrassed. Like, you got embarrassed. And if you watch Crain and Company, we told you this was coming. Like, literally told you this murder was coming. It's an awful matchup for Kentucky. But you're embarrassed. Like, you got your pants pulled down in front of the whole high school during the talent show. Like, it's like a real carry situation here. So I'll take embarrassment over disappointment. I think Kentucky can run the ball against Missouri, even though Missouri's a lot better against the run than they are against the pass. I think you'll see that play action game really come into it. The biggest question, and you brought it up, and it's anytime you play Missouri, is how do you stop Luther Burden or just limit him? I don't think stop's the word. Can you just not get beat by Luther Burden? But the trick about Missouri is it's not just Luther. Weiss is a good player. Pete's a good player. Schrader's a good player. Schrader is banged up, right, with that quad. Brady Cook's a good player. Anybody that was downing Brady Cook after that performance against LSU knows absolutely nothing, in my opinion, about how games actually work out. You had the one pick over the middle where you had that guy in drop coverage. You didn't see him underneath. Then you had one at the end where you're trying to score quickly, but you threw for 411 yards. You kept him in the game. I do like Kentucky at home because somebody has to win this game. I would not be shocked if it was a 3 or 4 overtime game, but give me the Wildcats to hold serve at home.
To Rocky Top, Jake, Tennessee, Texas A&M. This is a pair of head coaches that desperately need a W. Jimbo Fisher on the A&M side, and, of course, Josh Heupel, Tennessee. They're coming off the bye week after beating South Carolina. But, fans had expectations, maybe getting a double-digit wins, and I'm sure this was one they had checked off as a W in the preseason. I like Texas A&M's size, their front seven up against Tennessee's offensive front. And, I think if they can do what South Carolina should have done, which is put this game on Joe Milton and make him beat you and not let that running game go wild, which is easier said than done, but if they can commit to it, I think the Aggies walk out of Knoxville with a victory. What say you?
Man, I think A&M's front seven may be the best against the run in the country. Not that they're bad in the pass rush, but they're not as elite as they are in the pass rush as they are against the run. If you watch the tape, it's like an 18-car pileup anytime anybody tries to run the ball. They have just at every position. They got guys with mitts just putting their hands all over people. It's like a twister board out there. But when I watch A&M in the back end, they're just bad. They're just bad. I have never seen the first read open as much as it was last week for Alabama. They made it easy on Jalen Milroe. Hey, where's the first read? Oh, there he is. Just wide open. Oh, he's still there. There he is. 3rd and 14. Oh, there he is. Jermaine, hey, it's me, Jalen. Turn around here. I was shocked, man. Blew my mind. We saw it against Miami, too. Miami did the same thing. 2 totally different quarterbacks. Tyler Van Dyke, Jalen Milroe, exact same outcomes. Now, I do think Tennessee can pierce them a little bit in the run game because they run this style of system, right? If they're able to get it going and kind of wear them down a little bit, make them stay in base, not give them a chance to substitute and really let that depth get in. Not that I think Tennessee is going to run for a lot of yards, but they'll run for enough where I think it opens up the pass game. But like I said since the offseason, some of these people, Joe Milton, SEC Player of the Year. Joe Milton, he hit a golf cart at the Manning Passing Academy from 90 yards away, but he can't throw a slant. And y'all want to crown this man SEC Player of the Year. You got to put it on Joe Milton. You got to. The question this game will come down to, can Joe Milton make the routine plays routine? Can you field the ground ball at short and throw the guy out at first? That's it. Joe Milton has not shown the ability to be able to do that consistently. He'll make the wild throw down the field every now and then, right? He'll throw that hole shot versus cover 2, and you're like, good God. Like, you can just see the jet stream behind the ball. But then all of a sudden he'll throw a basic or a dig, and it looked like, a grenade exploded in his hand, or he threw a Roman candle out there. It's just consistency. If he does that, Tennessee's going to be open, right? I know they lost a lot of talent wide receiver. I like Squirrel White. I know Brew McCoy's hurt. But if he can hit open receivers and make the routine throws routine, Tennessee will win the game. And plus, A&M on the road, it's awful. Awful. 3-13 in true road games under Jimbo Fisher, not good.
Jake, what's the energy in College Station if A&M suffers their 3rd loss before the halfway point of October?
Well, man, can it get any worse when you're out there, screaming it in the woods in overalls? Look, it's not like I always laugh. It's not like they don't have the money. Everybody's like, oh, well, look at that buyout for Jimbo Fisher. Dude, come on. Have you seen There Will Be Blood? All right. These guys are walking around their bowling alley in the bottom of their mansion just fuming. They got the money. He goes 4-3. Brother, you better get hot at the end of the year. You better get hot at the end of the year. The more I look at this thing, what gets him fired, Chris? Does 5-7 get him fired?
I would say so, yeah. I think 7-5 or worse, you could justify it.
I think you can justify it. I think you can justify it already. But did they go get Mike Elko? Is that what's happening here? You can do it at Duke. You can do it at A&M.
Something's brewing. Something's brewing. We got two big spreads in the SEC this week, Jake. Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Vandy. I mean, is it all favorites this week?
Cover.
Did we see an upset? Who's got the cover? Vandy?
But Bama and Georgia cover.
Oh, both cover. Okay. Both the favorites cover. Okay. I do have Bama minus. I got Bama minus 19.5.
Me too.
I'm not touching Georgia, Vandy. I don't know how Vandy. I mean, congratulations to the Commodores for getting a CBS game, I guess, but it's only going to display that butt whooping they're about to take. So,
yeah,
not going to be much to watch.
We need to propose a trade.
I'm not sure if it was you or somebody else I saw talking about this, but poor Sam Pittman in Arkansas, because it's not going to get any better. It's not.
No, no, especially not this weekend. They're about to have 5 straight losses. You talk about a guy. I think after this year, and not that Arkansas doesn't have money, but I think after this year, his buyout significantly goes down. I don't think they'll fire him after this year, but I think he will be on the absolute inferno seat next year at Arkansas. I think Sam Pittman it's legitimately to that point. And it's tough because it was such a great fit, right? It was such a great fit, but it just shows you all perfect marriages don't work out, right? The UPS driver comes there, drop that package off. Maybe it's not the only thing he's dropping off. You never know.
That little one-liner, that reminds me it was you, because I did watch that entire clip when you talked about the it's like the kid in high school that, you go to his house freshman year and everything's perfect, and then senior year
parents are awesome. Yeah. Like they both love reading and like the outdoors, and they're funny, and they just get in the kitchen just laughing and hugging each other in front of everybody, don't care. Then you go over their senior year, they're getting a divorce. Like, I thought this was going to work out perfect. You guys were so happy. It was such a great fit together. Turns out it wasn't. Turns out there's a lot of other stuff going on. Turns out Pop had a temper when he got to drinking. All right.
Jake, last thing before we get you out of here, top games you're keeping an eye on this weekend. We've got UNC Miami. We've got Washington, Oregon. What catches your eye this week on the slate? And, of course, if you want to drop your picks, you're more than welcome to do so.
Oregon, money line, do it. One's an elite team playing a team that's an elite offense. I would say, looking at Miami, North Carolina, I think it's going to be on either one end of the spectrum or the other. Either Miami shows up and beats their brains in and plays unbelievable after what happened last year, or the first thing that goes wrong for Miami, they'll fold the tent and North Carolina is going to roll them. As far as betting goes, like I said, I like Oregon money line. I love Bama minus 19.5. I think here's a sneaky one for you. Temple and North Texas over 70. Trust me on that. There's going to be more scoring than Matthew McConaughey on Sorority Row in that one. I like the under in UCLA, Oregon State, right, at 54.5. I think that one's going to be low scoring. UCLA is a defensive team, which is just absolutely weird to think about. James Madison, minus whatever it is. They're a wagon. Absolute wagon. It's a Darius Rucker song out here. They're an absolute wagon every week. Give me James Madison. And it's one guy. Who'd have thought?
It's just one guy. It's just one guy, man. It's crazy how they keep doing it. Just one guy. Jake Crain of Crain and Company. Always a blast, Jake. I appreciate you taking the time, man. Let everybody know where they can check out all of you guys' work. I know you got tons of content coming out this weekend with your your game day show tomorrow morning, Sunday recap, and then, of course, all throughout the week.
Yeah, man, we have content dropping left and right. This is what we love to do, so we do a lot of it. As usual, it's always fun to come on here, chop it up with you guys. The easiest way, YouTube, Crain and Company, Crain and Company. You can do it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. Also, like you mentioned, we have those shows coming up this weekend. We have live calls on a live chat. We go live each weekday morning, 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central. Come hang out with us. We talk all of it. Like I said, take live questions. Have a good time with me and my two other co-hosts, my brother and David Cohn, who played quarterback at Michigan. No, not the pitcher. Apparently, there's a guy parading around pretending to be named David Cohn that supposedly pitched for the Yankees and the Mets. But no, Chris, it's always fun, buddy.
Jake, you're the man. We'll talk soon. I appreciate it.
See ya.
Yeah, man. Be good. Great stuff, guys. Jake Crain of Crain and Company. We are going to squeeze in a quick break. On the other side, we'll get our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. And stick around, guys. You're going to want to hear this. We've got a wager on the game tomorrow. All that and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008. Recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Macho Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we're back here on this Friday, October the 13th, 2023. I want to say thank you to our good friend Jake Crain for taking the time to chat with us here on this Friday. And as I told you at the top of the show, we're double dipping with the guests. We bring him on every single week. Very excited for this conversation because you guys knew this week was coming. It's been coming for quite some time. Gamecocks and Marc Ryan's Florida Gators, and he himself is here. Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He joins us. Marc, what's going on, man? I see it. I see the orange and blue in the background, man. How you feeling?
Chris, can I get a Go Gators? Can I get an orange and blue? Can I get an orange and blue? Da, 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 da. Go Gators! Come on, Chris. Sing it with me, buddy. Sing it with me.
Here we go.
How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm wishing the Braves had some more baseball to play, but other than that, I think I'm doing pretty well. So looking forward to the game tomorrow, man. Really excited. Let's go ahead. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get this out there. So to let the audience know, you and I made a friendly wager on the game tomorrow. Nothing too serious, and it's not because I'm sitting here thinking that it's a 100% slam dunk shoe-in that South Carolina is going to win. Because I know that over the offseason, right, I think there was a lot more confidence that South Carolina was going to get this victory now at just a 2.5-point spread. And I think this game is much, much more of a toss-up, coin flip type of game. But you and I have put a friendly wager out there. The loser of this ball game has to win the winner's hat on their show, their respective show on Monday. So if the Gators win, I'll be donning the Florida cap on TDC. If the Gamecocks win, you'll be donning the garnet and black on you guys' show Offsides of Marc Ryan, which we have. Thank
You're
goodness.
You're going to look so good in orange and blue, Chris. You're going to look so good in that. That's going to be a really good color combination for you.
I was going to say, Marc, thank goodness for the YouTube feed that the Fan Upstate now has. Thank goodness, because see, before you could have probably gotten away with this. Well, we're on radio. I promise I'm wearing it. Wink, wink. But now we have the video feed of you and Diesel in studio. Love that. Absolutely love that that's the case. So
yeah, I'm
excited
for that. Let's do this. If we can do it Monday, Chris, let's do it Monday, but certainly sometime next week. Okay.
Yes.
Certainly sometime next week. If you and I can link up, that's good. Chris, I'm going to be wearing the Gamecocks hat, unfortunately. I'm not looking forward to that, but I will be wearing the Gamecocks hat. Chris, I'm not a guy who, I think dumb people don't adjust their opinions. They dig their heels in when they're provided with additional evidence. I don't feel like I've been provided with so much evidence that I need to change my opinion from the offseason. Okay. My prediction on the Gamecocks was they would be 2-3 at this point. They are 2-3 at this point. My prediction on this game was they'd beat the Gators 37-17. Chris, if you give me data points to support picking Florida, I'm happy to change my pick. And as a matter of fact, I would love to change my pick. And it won't be the first time I've been wrong, Chris, and I certainly hope that I am wrong tomorrow. But what I continue to see are the data points that Florida is a very Jekyll and Hyde team that is totally a different team at home than on the road. At home, Florida is a top 25 team. On the road, Florida might not be a top 75 team. And if you can believe it, Chris, you remember my take in the offseason where I would take the Gamecocks over Florida State on a neutral field? And that got a lot of laughs, a lot of pushback. Well, how about this, Chris? I think the Gators might have a better shot of beating Florida State at home than they do beating the Gamecocks on the road, okay? Because the differences that I've seen in those teams, in that particular team in two different places. I got one data point I like for the Gators in this game, Chris, and that is that Florida leads the SEC in terms of giving up the fewest explosive passing plays. And that's what South Carolina is going to want to do, right? Missouri's the worst at that. They just played LSU, okay? Florida's the best at that thus far. If that holds true, Florida has a shot, but Florida's on the road. Florida's not off a bye. South Carolina has, a credit to Gamecock fans, one of the best home field advantages in the country. Chris, you know what the what are the bye numbers for South Carolina? Is it something like 14-2?
So yeah,
over the
South
last
Carolina
16?
15-2 since 2009, and they're 2-0 under Beamer, including one of those coming against Dan Mullen's Gators back in 21.
Chris, I was in a good mood when this call started. You're dramatically altering that mood for the worst right now. But I will be wearing the Gamecock hat next week. I expect to be wearing the Gamecock hat next week. I'd be picking a different outcome, Chris, if the game was at Florida and if Florida was off a bye. And it's amazing to me how you just mentioned off a bye week and everyone's like, oh, you're already throwing the excuses out there. Chris, it's a factor. It's not an excuse. It's a factor. If you don't think it's a factor, you're an idiot. Chris just gave you the stats. The Gamecocks are 14-2. Now, does that mean the Gators shouldn't try to win the game? Of course not. But it's a factor. All right? Florida's next 3 games are against opponents coming off a bye, and that should be illegal and that should be a crime. All right. So anyway, Chris, Florida's favored in one more game the entire rest of the season. That opponent, Arkansas, is coming off a bye when they play Florida. For all the factors coming in, you got 2 pretty evenly matched teams. You got one coming off a bye. You got one playing at home. You got another that isn't the same team on the road. That's enough for me. I have South Carolina tomorrow pretty comfortably, Chris.
And let's, Mark, go ahead and point this out, get this out of the way. Let folks know that tomorrow, because I'm sure your timeline will be active, but you are hosting CBS Sports Radio nationally. Didn't you say till 10 p.m.? So you're going pretty late.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're going to be busy during the game.
I've got
just
the
so
game
people
day
know.
coverage tomorrow, Chris. It's an honor. But with the Gator game starting at 3:30, see what I did there? The Gator game? With the Gator game starting at 3:30 p.m., it'll be over at 7. I'm on the air 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. So what I am forecasting, Chris, and that I need your help in, and your fellow Daily Crow listeners, is just letting people know that I'm not ducking anybody. I'm hosting a national radio show, and that I will be happy to do a short video tipping the cap to the Gamecocks, or flexing my sexy muscles on Florida's win. I'll be happy to do one of those 2 things, Chris, upon cessation of the CBS Sports Radio show, but I will not be able to do it when the game's over. And you know as well as I do, Chris, like I need the Chris Phillips tweet at 7 p.m. if South Carolina wins. Hey, guys, Mark told me he's going to say something at 10 p.m., but kindly leave him the bleep alone and let him finish his job. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just a quick PSA. I think we can make that happen. Mark, you mentioned Florida struggles on the road. I guess this is the question I've had all week that no Gator has been able to answer. I mean, is there one thing you can point to that explains why Florida is such a different team away from the swamp under Billy Napier?
Yes, Chris. Alligators are actually very territorial creatures. They don't leave a 25-mile radius from where they were born. Okay, so if you actually took an alligator from Florida and brought it up to Columbia, South Carolina, it wouldn't end well. Chris, that is the gist of it at its very essence. No, Chris, what you got is a very mentally weak team. You got a mentally weak team. Okay, you have Billy Napier, who has not yet figured out that as an offensive coordinator, he's a lot like Will Muschamp. You got receivers running routes in the same areas. Receivers, the route concepts for Florida don't make a lot of sense, Chris, quite honestly. There's a lot of film out on this that I've watched, and they're not taking advantage of advantageous matchups. They're running routes short of the sticks, and for it to work in Gainesville for Billy Napier, he's going to need to hire an offensive coordinator. That's something that should have happened last year. Still hasn't happened. Napier says he's his own worst critic, and I'm just not seeing the change there. This is a very ball control offense, and I think the things that frustrated Gator and Gamecock fans alike the most about Will Muschamp, Chris, is that he had an 11-1 year at Florida, but it was one of those years, Chris, where like every game was 17-14, 20-17, 14-10. Why would you ever have a strategy that is designed to be in a bunch of field goal games when you can't afford to lose one of them? Your strategy should be to try to blow out the opposition if you can't afford to lose one. The 20-17 style of game works fine in the NFL when you can win the Super Bowl with a record of 9-8. But if you can't afford to lose a game, This, like, we're going to play close to the vest, run the ball control, conservative style. It results in you being in a lot of close games, Chris. So here's what I'll say about tomorrow. If you tell me the score tomorrow, Chris, if you tell me, Mark, you're going to be hosting the show, you're not going to get to see a lot of it in real time. Here's the final score, Mark. It's 37-17. You don't tell me who wins. I'm going to tell you, I am a genius. Oh my gosh, I've nailed it. If you tell me the score is 24-23, I'm going to say, we might have a chance. Chomp, chomp. If it's a close game, Chris, the Gators have a shot. If you tell me the score is a blowout, it's exactly what I feared. Okay? And credit to Gamecock fans for creating one of the best home field advantages in all of college football.
Mark, you guys went on record over at the Fan Upstate after the loss to Tennessee and said that the honeymoon was over for Shane Beamer. And obviously, we've talked a lot about year 3, the importance of, booming in year 3, popping off as a head coach, what have you. And so you're someone that keeps up with very much so, obviously, the trajectory of the program, and the comparisons are just, they're unavoidable to what Will Muschamp did through 3 years. How important is this one for Shane Beamer? If the honeymoon was over after Tennessee, if things go south for South Carolina, what will the narrative or the headline be from the Fan Upstate that Monday following that performance?
That the year where the college football greats separate themselves from the pack, the year where college football coaching greats separate themselves from the pack, year 3, has been a bust for Shane Beamer. That'll be the narrative. But what makes this game so compelling is it's the exact same scenario for Napier and Beamer. Now, Napier's only in year 2, but if Florida doesn't win this game, the season's a wash for the Gators. I mean, think about that. I mean, you got a team that's 4-3 if Florida loses. They got 5 games remaining. They're a favorite in one of them. Okay? I mean, what's that going to be? What, do you get lucky and win one game as an underdog? You finish 6-6. You think that's going to fly in Gainesville? You think that's going to be good? If Beamer loses this game, you and I are not going to be picking them, Chris, at Missouri or at Texas A&M if they lose this game. Let's call a spade, which means then you have a 4-game losing streak. We asked the question yesterday on the show, what's more likely? Gamecocks finish 4-8. Clemson finishes 10-2. That's a tough one, right? It's a tough one because this is a 50-50 game for South Carolina. You lose this game, you're picking them to lose Missouri, Texas A&M. There are wins coming up against Jacksonville State and Vanderbilt. Are you, based on what you've seen on the lines, Chris, South Carolina, can they beat Kentucky? Based on what you've seen on the lines, okay? And they're going to be an underdog against Clemson. So this is what makes it fascinating. Yes, it has been called, this game, Chris, the Battle of Mid. Okay, this is the Battle of Mid right now in the SEC, but it's all we got. Okay, and the only chance Gator fans, myself included, and Gamecock fans, yourself included, have a chance to be above that is to win this game. Okay, lose and it's leave your feelings at the door until next fall.
I think what's scaring me, Mark, is, I've talked to your good friends, our good friends, in all kinds of weather.com. I went on another Florida show, Stadium and Gale. Those guys do a great job as well. But every Florida party that I've talked to has zero confidence, and they're all picking the Gamecocks to win. And for whatever reason, that does not sit well in my heart right now. It makes me more nervous, I think, that all Florida fans, just mail it in. It's South Carolina, they're going to run away with it. I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I will say, though, Mark, I picked Carolina 24-20, to your point about a lower scoring game. I think it's more likely South Carolina wins this game by double digits than Florida wins. And to your point, I think home field advantage does a lot of it. It just, the numbers speak to South Carolina's a different team at home. Florida's a much different team on the road. And, you've got Spencer Rattler and they've got Graham Mertz. So, but I will say, Mark, if Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne get going in the running game, I think all bets are off because who knows at that point. I think South Carolina, that's got to be their top priority tomorrow.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And what what Florida needs to do essentially, Chris, is grow a pair. I mean, how's that for fancy analysis for you, right? You want breaking down coverage schemes and everything like that. They need to find the testicular fortitude to take their A game on the road. And they haven't found that this year. And it's a crying shame. The sad thing for both of our programs is that the only road game in the SEC that you'd feel confident in is Vanderbilt. Okay. Florida at Mississippi State is a coin flip. South Carolina at Mississippi State is a coin flip. Okay. Vandy is the only team, and you're not going to be anything in this conference if you can't win on the road. You're not going to be anything. So Florida's chance is to show themselves that they are something because they've got more talent than the Gamecocks, Chris. Look, these two programs are relatively equal on the offensive side of the ball. Florida averages 406 yards a game, South Carolina 399. You can make an argument that even though the Gamecocks have a massive quarterback advantage, and they do, the offensive line, the running game of Florida sort of evens that out. But Florida defensively is giving up over 100 games less than South Carolina. So in terms of half the game, Florida should have a dominant advantage over the Gamecocks. Florida should be able to move the ball more effectively than South Carolina is. Florida should be able to stop South Carolina's offense more effective than South Carolina is. But that's not what we've seen on the road. And until you give me data points, plural, that show me otherwise, I'm going to think that this Florida Gator team is LSU at home and Vanderbilt on the road. It is what it is.
Indeed. Mark, switching gears just a little bit because, NIL is typically something, and transfer portal and all that, it's typically something we say for the off season to discuss, but it came to the forefront this week when Mark Stoops made comments earlier in the week about Georgia's roster and the way they've built that. And then Shane Beamer in his Tuesday presser asked about it. And he used that opportunity, obviously, to pump up and promote NIL. We need your funds. We need your money. We need to do this, that, whatever. And NIL to compete at the highest level. Your thoughts on the NIL chatter this week? And I know it's something, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know how you feel about college football and the direction it's going. And I'd have to imagine the NIL conversation this week and two head coaches basically going on public record asking their fan bases for more money so they can compete at the highest level. I'd imagine it makes you cringe a little bit.
Here's what does, is that we are now blurring the lines between what is legal and what is illegal. It was just last November that, speaking to SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, he told me that we need the NCAA to do its job, and it is illegal to use money as an inducement to get a player to change schools. So what is the NIL being used for? It was supposed to be, man, Xavier Legette's a star receiver. We're a local pizza shop. We'd like to have him promote our pizza shop. The pizza shop reaches out to the football program or the collective, and they set up the deal that way. The same way that you get a sponsor or I get a sponsor. That's what it was supposed to be. It is illegal to use cash as inducements. So why isn't every coach that comes out and say this guilty of a penalty and being left to face infraction? Like, you are saying we need more money so we can commit a penalty. It's against the rules. It is flat against the rules. You are not allowed to get a player to leave a school, to induce a player to leave a school with money. And you're like, well, Mark, isn't that rich? Have you seen where Marshawn Lloyd is? Have you seen where Jordan Birch is? I have. It's illegal. So the NCAA, again, like Florida, needs to grow a pair, Chris, and needs to have the spine to enforce its own rules and stop being afraid of a lawsuit. Or we need congressional oversight effective immediately. Or it's going to continue to be this game where coaches are saying, we just can't compete. South Carolina's 12th out of 14 teams in NIL money? What is the NIL money being used for? If it's being used to help your current team, I have less of a problem with that. If it's used to say, man, you know what? We're the Gamecocks, and the Gators have a couple of offensive linemen we'd really like. What's Florida giving you? 125, we'll give you 250. Call it once, we'll give you 250. Call it one, call it. Okay, you see what I'm saying? It's become an auction, Chris, and that to me is disgusting, and that's what makes me cringe about the Stoops and Beamer comments this week.
Mark, of course, you mentioned Billy Napier a lot. I know you've got a very, very high standard for Florida football. Do you think Napier's the guy to get them back to that? Tough question, huh?
TBD.
If you had to guess right now, though, do you think? I guess the question for Napier will just be, can he withstand what's going to be a brutal schedule next year and do well enough to get more time?
There's a caveat here, and
okay.
that is if he hires the right offensive coordinator, yes. If he hires the wrong offensive coordinator, no. If he hires no offensive coordinator, no. You know, South Carolina's non-conference schedule next year, Chris, is the Sisters of the Poor. What, were the Island of Misfit Toys not available when that schedule was made? I mean, the Gamecocks are starting the year next year with 4 wins. South Carolina has Akron and Wofford and some other
Old Dominion, I think. Old Dominion.
Yes, very old Dominion. Decrepit Dominion. Collecting Social Security Dominion. Senior Citizen Discount Dominion. That's what they're playing to start next year. Florida, meanwhile, has got Florida State, Miami, UCF to go with the. So what I've been telling folks is, at this point, the program has been through so much turmoil. You got to give Napier 4 years. Now, what I would love to see is the record improved by a game each year. Okay? So you got to win. You got to win this game. You got to win this game. You got to get to 5 wins. If you don't win every other game on your schedule, Chris, for Florida, except Georgia, Florida State, and LSU, okay? If you don't beat South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, if you don't win these other games, you can't finish 7-5. Or you can lose to South Carolina, but now you got to beat Florida State, LSU, at Missouri. You got to win one that you're not supposed to win, right? In order to finish 7-5. So if Napier can improve the program enough to go from 6-6 to 7-5, next year's schedule, this isn't subjectivity, Chris. This is what folks are saying. The most difficult schedule in college football history the Gators have. If he can somehow manage 8-4 in that, you get 1 game better each year. Then by 2025, you're looking at year 2 for Lagway, the 5-star quarterback recruit. And then you're saying, okay, manageable schedule, as manageable as possible. Year 2 for Lagway. Now we're ready to bump. Now we're ready to roll. I think at this point, you got to suck it up and give him 4 years no matter what.
And we'll see if the Gators fan base is actually willing to do that. Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Mark, one last thing to get you out of here. Of course, the rest of the college football slate. Of course, you'll be on CBS Sports Radio, which congratulations on that, Mark. Seriously, that is a hell of an accomplishment. You'll be across, you got the numbers, but hundreds of radio stations. You'll be able to hear Marc Ryan wherever you go, wherever you are. We've got Tennessee, Texas A&M. We've got Kentucky, Mizzou. We've got Oregon, Washington out west. We've got Miami, North Carolina. Of course, Clemson is on a bye. What jumps out to you in this Week 7 slate of college football, of course, outside of Gamecocks and Gators?
I see what the odds are saying, Chris, but when you actually look at the games, doesn't it seem plausible that we could have an unbeaten team from every Power 5 conference? Out of the mix of Oregon, Washington, USC, are you telling me it's impossible that there's a last man standing there that doesn't have an L? Oklahoma, is it impossible that they win a rematch against Texas? Then you look at the other leagues. Is Michigan going to lose a game? Probably not. Florida State? Probably not. Georgia? Probably not. So what happens if we have 5 unbeaten Power 5s? Who is left out? It would have to be Florida State in that.
This is a great year for the 12-team playoff, Mark. I'll say that. This is a fantastic year for that.
Well, think about it from one standpoint, all right? Like in our neck of the woods, we cover Clemson and South Carolina. The show would be more interesting if Clemson was still in it. Hey, man, maybe they can make a run. If they run the table, every game's a playoff game, they could get back into it. It would be more compelling right now if that was the case. But I think Tennessee and Texas A&M is very, very interesting. A&M's lost its last 7 consecutive road games. Tennessee has not lost a home game since 2021. Oregon is in the top 6 offensively and defensively, and the game features the number 1 and number 2 offenses in America. So can the home field advantage for Washington overcome the discrepancy of the number 6 ranked defense, Oregon, against the number 62 ranked defense, Washington? That's not all that different, Chris, from the defensive discrepancy that we'll see in Columbia on Saturday. Can the home field advantage help South Carolina play better on defense than they would otherwise?
Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate does a fantastic job. Marc, cannot wait to see you in that garnet and black cap on Monday, my man. Let people know, by the way, how they can tune in tomorrow to CBS Sports Radio and check you out during game day.
Oh, I appreciate it. So I actually think the show will be on in Columbia, Chris. It's on in over 360 stations nationwide. And you can check your local CBS Sports Radio affiliate for listings. You can also download the Odyssey app. That's AUDACY. Just go to CBS Sports Radio. It'll be right there. Or you can stream live at cbssportsradio.com. It is a dream come true, man. It is an honor. I think this is my 53rd show with them. My 2-year anniversary is coming up. And every time they ask you to host, Chris, it's a blessing because, there's no guarantees, as you know. There's no promises. So every time they ask me to host, it's like, I did well enough to be asked back. I did well enough to be asked back again. So it's a real pleasure and an honor, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And no place I'd rather be than behind the mic on a glorious college football Saturday, no matter how heartbroken I might be towards the end of it.
Well, Marc, I know one thing. Either way, good or bad, the Monday appearance on your show is going to be a blast. I remember last year having to listen to the Gator Chomp as I was introduced to the show. So it'll be fun either way. So, Marc.
For some reason, I'm not looking as forward to it nearly as much as you are. I don't know why that is. Yeah.
Indeed. Marc, I appreciate you, man. Best of luck this weekend. And, of course, we'll talk to you all next week.
I appreciate you guys. All the best. Have a good weekend. Good luck. Take care.
Take care, man. Great stuff, guys, from Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Great guest appearances today from both Jake Crain and Marc Ryan. And the bet's out there. The bet's on the table. Loser of the game has to wear the winner's cap. So, God, if I'm wearing a Florida hat on this show, I will just – not going to be a good time. Not going to be a good time. But hopefully, and I think that Marc Ryan, good chance, he will be wearing the – Gamecock cap, and we'll hook him up with some Beamer ball or just something. I don't know. We'll get him hooked up with something. Guys, hey, we've hit 2:00. That's going to do it all for me. Appreciate you all. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live. We drop new video content as well. Like I mentioned, too, we're going to be beefing up the YouTube content, so you're going to see more of that. So make sure you stay tuned. Also, of course, the podcast drops every single day, Monday through Friday. iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, check us out there. 5 p.m. Eastern or so, the show drops every day. And then, of course, the A1 Air Quality Consultants post-game call-in show will air tomorrow immediately following the game against Florida right here, YouTube, Facebook as well, X, wherever you get your content, we'll be there. We'll be live. And that content will drop via podcast form that Sunday morning. So we got a jam-packed weekend of content. It's been a great week, guys. Thank you all so much for the continued love of sport. Thank you all so much for continuing to roll with the punches with us as we continue to evolve and grow and sharpen things up and do things that best serve you guys, the end consumer, and drive as much value as we possibly can, guys. I cannot say thank you enough for the love and support, and TSUS would not be what it is and what it's becoming without your love and support. Guys, that being said, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Go Cox, beat Florida, and we will talk to you all tomorrow night.